On December 16th, 2007, a creator by the name of Puffballs United would upload his first game to Newgrounds. It was a simple, interactive game or movie type deal, where you'd select an option to try get this little stickman across this gap. It was a pretty basic project for a beginner animator and programmer in Flash. But little did Puffballs know what he started. After all, a whole new collection of adventures awaited him. Hi, it's Datache, and I like Flash games. I've talked about them enough that you could probably figure that out. But I'm still yet to mention one of the kings of this era. A titan that continues to have relevance in both online discussion and meme culture to this very day. Let's talk about Henry Stickmin. An iconic stick anti-hero who can do anything he puts his mind to, granted he gets 3 or 4 attempts first. Although you may know him best from a clip where he caved his own skull in and it made you do that little nose exhale thing. This is a series of slapstick-savvy, choose-your-own-adventure games that have been around for a while, originating as Flash games on Newgrounds and Stickpage, and soon spreading into the mainstream, the series culminating in the release of the Henry Stickmin collection in 2020, a collection of all 5 of the games up to that point, plus an additional final game, completing the mission, made specifically for this release. These games are full of fun references to all different kinds of media, and only grew in scope with an increasing range of different paths and endings, but you already knew that. If you're familiar with these games, it's likely you've seen all of these. I don't think it's necessary to be another YouTuber showing the full runtime of all the games for the 100th time, although this was always a topic I've wanted to talk about on the channel since before even the Riddle School video. And I've just been trying to find the right excuse to talk about all of the games. So when approaching this game for this video, I came in with a single goal. I'm not going to play through these games, I'm going to complete them. Welcome to my journey to 100% the Henry Stickmin collection. This is the first entry in the collection and our prologue. Good old Henry here is low on cash, and rather than sell the smorgasbord of knickknacks and god-slaying weapons in his back pocket, we've got to take our pick from a couple of the options to break the bank and get our prize. Of course, not all of our choices will be winners. This simple story sets us up for the type of game we have ahead of us, the general plot structure of this franchise, as well as the types of achievements and hidden goodies we'll have to find. We will need to get every ending in each game for an achievement. In this first game, there's only one, but as we get further, the amount of possible outcomes is only going to skyrocket. We're also going to have to see every single way Henry can die for an achievement in each of the games. Then there's what I'd argue to be quite literally the worst requirement for 100%. You have to collect the unique character bios for each character in each game. You get those by right-clicking literally every fucking character who appears on screen, so most of the footage will look like this.
At this point, he has only like...
On the bright side though, you get to collect a bunch of this character information each game, revealing the staggering amount of lore behind the Henry Stickmin universe. There are other types of achievements too, but a lot of them are a lot more specific, and I'll go over some of the more interesting ones as we head into each new game. In the case of breaking the bank, the only other achievement is for turning off the car alarm after Henry hits this natural gas pipe, but you should get used to stuff like this, since clicking innocuous background details is pretty important for 100%ing the rest of the games. That being said, before we move on to said games, we should see how this one wraps up, right? All the other options here lead to failure, which means all that's left is to disguise yourself as a bag. You get picked up by a bunch of the bankers and thrown into the vault. But when Henry opens the bag inside the vault, he only ends up setting off a laser security system, leading to his arrest. Henry Stickmin, bored in his middle school prison class, does what he knows best and makes his escape. Wait, wrong game. In escaping the prison, Henry Stickmin Do I really need to explain what he does here? After being delivered a mysterious cake to his cell that actually has a bunch of gadgets inside, Henry is given 6 new options to choose from. But unlike in Breaking the Bank, this game introduces branching paths, leading to 3 unique endings and a whole lot of new fails. Here we have achievements for getting all fails, all bios, and all 3 endings, those being the sneaky ending, where you manage to escape the prison with minimal attention, the lawyered up ending, where you call Saul and go through a full Ace Attorney parody to prove Henry's innocence, and the badass bust down, where your escape attempt culminates in a full guns blazing showdown with the guards, ending with your victory. This game acts as a major step up from its predecessor, and the first real Henry Stickmin game, taking its choose your own adventure premise to new heights. And in the same way, this is where the side content also begins to develop its own identity. Some of these achievements are like, obscure. Some of them, like lol brawl reference, are just found through finding a specific fail, but others, like Donut Want, have you go through the entire game collecting 5 hidden donuts. Our other main hidden achievement is the summoning of everyone's favourite ancient internet meme, Shoop da Whoop. God, he really dates this game, huh? These will only get more difficult to find throughout these games, so if you're playing along, I do recommend you use literally any sort of guide at all, unless you're like me and don't value your mental well-being. Regardless, that's the second game, escaping the prison seen in full. It's a step up from Breaking the Bank and sets up a precedent for the future. So let's see how things go from here. So, you may have been expecting to move on to stealing the diamond, but I still see this video as a retrospective. There are topics I want to talk about that don't really go with the general flow of the video, but this is the main meat of it. For now, I want to talk about the Henry Stickmin collection itself. Beyond being a compilation of all the games plus the new entry, this game also acts as a remaster, with a lot of the art, especially for the older games, being completely redone, and animations being touched up. This isn't the first time these games have been ported to different platforms, since the games from escaping the prison to infiltrating the airship used to have mobile versions, but to my knowledge, those have since been taken down, making the collection the definitive way to play. However, alongside the updated look of these games, there are a lot of changes, especially in the first 2 games. The first and most obvious change is a lot of the new quality of life features. In the 5th game of the series, Fleeing the Complex, a map feature was introduced, which allows you to jump to any point in any route that you've already played, which makes backtracking and seeing all the fails and routes a whole lot easier. This has been added to every game in the collection, which makes completing games like infiltrating the airship far less frustrating. Another feature from Fleeing the Complex were these little time indicators during QuickTime events. In the original versions of the older games, you had no visual indicator of how bad your reaction time is, but this is now in all of the games for your convenience. I think the other most immediately recognizable change is the removal of basically all copyrighted materials. Pokeballs are now good balls, portal guns are now wormhole rifles, and all music and jingles have been replaced to legally distinct versions of themselves. And while all those changes make sense, the ones that stick out to me are changes to some of the fails.
The reason I changed a lot of the fails in this one was because I didn't think they were that funny. They were too, predictable. Like when he digs down here in the original one, you see him land on some train tracks and you're like, I wonder what's gonna happen. And then the train comes. And then he gets hit by a train. And so I changed the 3 that I didn't really like that much. For the better, I think.
Even here, we're still seeing improvements to make this collection the definitive version of these games, and knowing how much work Puffball put into it, it makes sense. And you know what? It's about time we see more of that hard work, as we head back to our 100% journey. In Stealing the Diamond, after seeing the brand new, very expensive Tunisian diamond being unveiled at a museum, our favourite kleptomaniac is gonna well, here, instead of the 6 options we've been granted at the beginning of the other 2 games, we're given 3 main entry strategies. One by busting in, and 2 others by sneaking in, either through the top of the building or through the side. These 3 routes will lead to our 3 different endings this time round. In Intruder on a scooter, you tear through the guards on your sweet ride and must survive an action-packed chase sequence across the city. There's also the Unseen Burglar ending, where you use your wit and timing to get through the museum undetected. Nailed it. Or the Just Plain Epic ending, where a series of highly unlikely events causes total chaos to erupt in the museum, leading to an organization known as the Center for Chaos Containment dropping several different, remedies to contain the chaos. And as you'd expect, reaching each of them are their own achievements. Of course, there's still one for getting all 40 fails and all the bios, as well as some based around Easter eggs. The most time-consuming one is the Connoisseur achievement, where you have to click on every painting in the museum to steal them, and some of them are not on screen for long. But ultimately, this is not the worst scavenger hunt we'll have to do 100%ing this game. This game used to be a pretty common starting point in the series back in the day. I remember when big YouTubers got into the series, this was the most common one for people to start with. And after looking back, it does make sense. It's definitely an improvement over escaping the prison, but it's right before the game's scale starts to get a lot bigger. Admittedly, I don't think it's the most interesting game in this collection, but it introduced a lot of fun world-building elements, like the Center of Chaos Containment or the different jewels across the world. And that aside, it's where I started too. And I think even beneath the chaos, it remains one of my favourites, although we won't reach my favourite for a while. How many references do you think there are across the entire Henry Stickmin collection? Seriously, give me your best guess. Back when I was working on this video, my friends and I did a playthrough where our one goal was to name every single reference we could spot on screen. I cannot emphasize enough, don't do that. You'll die trying, especially if you try to make it a drinking game. The YouTuber Two Left Thumbs made a relatively brief video covering the subject. If he missed one, I'm sure he will face the wrath of God. This is all to say, in a very chaotic manner, that Puffballs is someone who takes a lot of inspiration from media he enjoys, and this is very normal in the creative process. But it's of particular note because from Stealing the Diamond onwards, these start to become a lot more common. I've already noted the Pokeballs and Portal Gun, but we've got Super Mushrooms, Head Crabs, Hitler, wait what? And this love for other creations is probably one of Henry Stickmin's most notable qualities. It's very earnest in an almost playground who would win conversation kind of way. Would you be able to rob a bank easier with a Portal Gun or Super Mushroom? Would you be able to survive Minecraft in real life? Is cheese the most powerful food on the planet? The answer is yes, by the way. Lactose intolerance is no joke! As we go through, you'll see this cute idea develop, and it's probably one of my favourite aspects of the series. Tell you what, let's make this a little game. Tell me how many you're able to recognise in the comments below. After all, we're gonna have a lot of material to work from as we head into in infiltrating the airship. After a successful prison break from the West Mesa Penitentiary and theft of the Tunisian diamond, Henry has been captured by the government and tasked with infiltrating the criminal organization, the Datache clan, to either capture or defeat its leaders, or gather evidence of their wrongdoing in exchange for a pardon from the government. Of course, knowing our favourite thief, we shouldn't be surprised if he gets a little distracted along the way. This is definitely one of the more complicated setups we've had so far, but it's all in service of widening the scope of both this game's different routes and its world. Right off the bat, we're given 4 different options to infiltrate the airship. Through using the cannonball, you take an action-packed route to capture the leader of the Top Hats, and either turn him into the government or take over the organization for a relentless bounty hunter or rapidly promoted executive, respectively. Using the grapple gun will eventually lead Henry down the path of discovering the Romanian ruby hidden in the Top Hat's vault, and making enemies of both the Top Hats, government, and the returning Center for Chaos Containment in order to escape with the ruby for the pure-blooded thief ending. And by taking the earpiece, you team up with Pilot and best boy, Charles, to successfully gather intel on the airship for the government-supported private investigator ending. There is also the sticky hand, but we'll come back to that one later. I really like how slowly but surely the different routes have become less representative of just taking a different approach to a break-in or break-out, and starts becoming about siding with these different factions in this dumbass cartoony world. And we get to see a lot more of it as we get through these games. Focusing on the achievements though, this should really go without saying at this point, but there are achievements for murdering Henry in every conceivable way, and one for getting all the buyers in the game. Bound to the Earth and Last Reverie are achievements obtained by winning the Earthbound or Final Fantasy fight against the right-hand man. If you couldn't tell, these games really like their gaming references, who would have thought? Remember the sticky hand option from the opening? It leads to probably my favourite fail in the game. Henry managed to get into the loading bay, and manages to steal a pretty valuable looking safe. Except... a winner is you! Another pretty funny one comes from the government-supported private investigator route, where after crawling into the vents and getting a Mass Effect-style dialogue wheel, this is where you can get the achievement Barnyard Blitz for making a random-ass animal sound. Meh. Famous movie line, Butterfingers and Gold are Easter eggs hidden in clicking different text in fail screens. Famous movie line is so horribly obscure, by the way. How would anyone know to type the name of the movie using the letters in the fail screen text? Like... whatever, I'm a tile puzzle veteran, I can deal with this shit. Similarly enough, B needs you to collect the TF2 logo on the computer in the rapidly promoted executive ending. You can tell this game is old because the TF2 scout only screams instead of calling the player a slur. For the BRAG achievement, we need to click the sun in the pure-blooded thief ending to meet our old friend and dead meme Shoop da Whoop. But okay, let's just cut to the chase. The big ol' sword hunt is probably the most complicated achievement in the entire series. I'm not kidding, if the fucking wiki says it, it must be true. Okay, so for this achievement, you need to free Dave Panper from the cells in the airship. You do this by grabbing a key under the computer in the pure-blooded thief route before you enter the vault. He then will keep appearing in the background, and while you're in the vault, you need to grab the USB he has. Then, at the end of the route, you need to click the USB while it's on the desk at the Center for Chaos Containment, and you're given a code. Then, in a totally different route, you need to enter the code while chasing the Top Hat leader, allowing you to unlock the big ol' sword. Why did they do this? So that's infiltrating the airship. I truly believe this is where the series began to hit its stride, and for whatever reason, I feel like it's an open secret that this one is a lot of people's favourite. And I understand why. I think the setup and payoffs for gags get more clever, the scale is wider, and the choices you make feel wilder. The choice this game gives you between which faction you wish to side with and the characters in both the government and Top Hat clan became a recurring element throughout the series. And this game essentially acts as one of the two pillars that hold up the final game in the series, which I'll explain later. Because before we do anything else, I need to talk about Charles. Look at the boy. Look at peak fiction. You need a Tumblr sexy man? He's right fucking here. Let's talk about Charles. Can we talk about Charles? I've been dying to talk about Charles all day. Charles is our guy in the chair, but also like the peak himbo archetype. Absolute brick for brains, but the purest of intentions. And because of this, nothing bad happens to him ever because I said so. He tends to play a supporting role for Henry, giving him access to options that are deployed from the helicopter or other related government tech. He also has a tendency to crash whatever vehicle he's piloting into your current location.
Alright, here I come.
Which is something I thought the US military wasn't a massive fan of, but I guess if you can't beat 'em, join 'em. Either way, Charles's interactions act as a nice change of pace, giving us an almost buddy cop-like dynamic without stepping on Henry's toes too much. And this won't be the last time we see him. A friend like him will always look out for Henry after all. Of course, we have a whole new adventure to look towards now. Whether he likes it or not, Henry's locked up again, and he'll need all the help he can get. In fleeing the complex, Henry Stickmin once again finds himself imprisoned, this time by a foreign government in the freezing prison known as the Wall.
Hello, Henry. Welcome to the Wall. Some of the most cunning and notorious criminals are kept here, and now we have the infamous Henry Stickmin. You're going to be here for a long time.
This game is extremely popular. For quite a while it was the second highest rated game of Newgrounds, as in ever, and for good reason. As mentioned before, this game is where a lot of quality of life features seen in the rest of the collection originated from, and as expected, is even bigger than Airship, with 5 endings and of course, a whole armada of achievements to aggravate my already angered anus. So without further ado, let's take a look-see at the achievements for a personal favourite of mine. As you'd expect by now, there's an achievement for getting all the endings, all of the fails, and all of the bios, which by this point in the series is starting to get a little overwhelming. We'll get to you later. But for now, our focus is split across the game's 5 routes. Well, more like 4, but I'll explain. Right after the game's introduction, Henry is left in a holding cell to be transferred, leaving us with 4 options right off the bat. 3 options right off the bat. In the holding cell, Henry can make a break for it, leading to a high security chase across the complex and beyond, eventually culminating in one of the hardest Henry Stickmin moments ever.
I have to say, Henry, I'm impressed. Really, I am. You're the first person to escape the wall, but this is the end for you. You've got 2 options here, Henry. You stay in there, or you return with us back to the complex. What's it going to be, Henry? Well, that's just too bad.
Jesus Christ, man. Henry ends up inadvertently faking his death, netting us the presumed dead ending. If we decide to wait in the cell, Henry will be transported to his full cell, and on his way out, is able to call in help from either the Datache clan or Charles! Calling in the best boy allows him to help Henry escape the only way he knows how.
I got the perfect plan. This is the greatest plan.
And making your escape via the chopper, lending us the International Rescue Operative rank. Going the way of the Datache clan leads to them trying to pick up Henry by airship, but uncovering the true intentions of the leader in the process.
That was a close one, Henry. But I'm not going to pull you up. See, without you, I become the leader of the Datache clan again. I just wanted to look you in the eyes as I took it all back. Goodbye.
That ending made 11-year-old me shit myself. What the fuck was gonna happen to Henry? Alright, last up. In the holding cell, Henry can make an escape by getting a boost with the help of this mysterious redhead, and either leave her for dead and attempt a silent escape for ghost inmate, or not be a shitty person and take her with him on a buddy cop style escape mission of epic proportions, resulting in a prison riot, a couple bad decisions, finding a kick-ass motorcycle, and the origin of a pair of lifelong convict allies. This is Ellie Rose, and probably the only other character remotely close to being as loved as Charles. We'll talk about her later. For now, let's get into what I dedicated most of my playtime to: the achievements. To start with, the Rise and Shine achievement is an Easter egg hunt where you have to help Henry wake up and smell the ashes, Mr. Stickmin, by finding the 5 G-men, Gary man, for XX Noob Slayer XX. You need to click a link to a highlight reel of one of the fails and I'll just show you. God, I fucking love this game. The Waldorf achievement needs you to find Waldorf hidden in the Convoct Allies route. I hear in Europe he's called Waldy. It took me an hour to find him. Speaking of things that take an hour, Shoop-da-Whoop appears 3 times, and all 3 of them he's not really feeling up to it right now. Finding him in every instance lands us brug no. During the Ghost Inmate route, there's a bunch of times where Henry just gets his head smacked in by his basic lack of acrobatics. For the Nailed It achievement, you've got to click where he lands before he hits the ground, or at least that's what I've seen in game and on the wiki, but it seems pretty hit or miss. I'm not sure if that's a bug or not, but it made things slightly more annoying. Anyway, AU is a small Easter egg in reference to what can only be described as a peak gameplay experience. Similar to some achievements in the last few games, it's as simple as clicking fail screen text. Speaking of simple, the spooked achievement just needs you to Lastly, easy achievement is pretty simple to get. In the betrayed route, you just need to click the text box on the slingshot fail screen with no other obstacles whatsoever. And that is fleeing the complex. There's a reason I've had so many clips of this game to show. The quality of writing on display blows infiltrating the airship out of the goddamn water. The way tension is built in some of these scenes is just... Every moment with the Warden feels movie quality. He really makes it known how much his pride hinges on recapturing Henry, and his monologue at the end of Presumed Dead gave me chills. The Top-Hat leader's betrayal, an incredibly memorable interaction that I quote far too often and bother my friends with, not sorry. This game stands as a testament to Puffball United's growth in writing, game design, and voice work, and I will always hold this installment as the best in my heart. But the story doesn't end here, no. But first, let's talk about women. A woman? In my video game? Ellie Rose acts as a deuterogonist in the Convict Allies route. She's left in the holding cell with you at the beginning of the game, and after getting a boost from her, you're given a very distinct choice to leave her behind or take her with you. If you take her, the game ends up changing its formula a little, with Henry and Ellie combining their skills together to overcome obstacles. Although unlike the Charles dynamic, it's a lot less like having a guy in the chair and a lot more like having 2 Henrys, which is fun. There are a lot of goofier actions or stupid decisions that can only be made with 2 idiots rather than 1, and leads to a lot of creative and memorable fails. I think throughout that route you can really feel yourself forming a genuine camaraderie with Ellie, which really comes full force in the end when the game tries to make you think that she's left you for dead, only for her to show her full faith in you. But despite that, we know nothing about her. The bios make it clear that Ellie's situation is very much a mystery, but why is she here? For her to end up in the complex, she must have done some shit, right? We know for sure from later material that she's a criminal like Henry, but the extent of her deeds or her reputation aren't that well known. And that's where our information would end if the Lord and Saviour Puffballs United didn't descend from the heavens around the release of the collection and do a developer's commentary where we get a lot of insight into what her original purpose was supposed to be.
Ellie was originally a character with a Fu Manchu mustache, and that was the character that accompanied you throughout. But then pretty early I was like, I should make a female character. I haven't done that yet. The main reason I didn't do one is because I can't voice them. Then I was able to find a voice actress. Someone asked if the scrapped side story would explain why Ellie was in the wall. I think it did. The idea, okay, I remember a little more of it. Infiltrating the airships, Ellie's version of it is her and Reginald and Right-Hand Man performing a coup against, what's his name? Terrence Suave. But then Ellie has to do kind of sacrifice herself in order to get him off the ship. So her and Terry go into an escape pod, and Reginald kind of like abandons her almost. He's like, since he becomes the leader, he doesn't care if she gets sacrificed. So they get launched into the snow, and then she gets found by the wall and gets put into the wall. That was the story there. Part of the story. It was a scrapped storyline. that's part of the reason why it was scrapped, is because I couldn't make completing the mission make sense with her and Henry fighting the top bats, and like you had to make sure that players were aware that she used to be part of them stuff. It was just extremely messy, so I cut the story completely and rewrote it.
The Ellie side game didn't work out, and the desire remained to make a prominent female character, so she ended up in her current form. But I think it all makes sense when you see what comes next, rounding out this Stickmin saga and granting us closure on as many accounts as possible. It's time for one last adventure. Completing the Mission was a game developed specifically for the Henry Stickmin collection, as a proper finale to the series, and it works a bit differently to the other entries. The game focuses on the Datache clan's scheme to launch a space station into orbit to easily commit crimes across the globe. And depending on the route you're on, their plan will be in varying stages of progression. You see, completing the mission seeks to resolve every possible combination of events, from both infiltrating the airship and fleeing the complex, and as such, depending on what Henry's actions were in the previous game, you may be fighting to aid in the launch on the behalf of the Top Hats, fighting them alongside the government, or somewhere else in between. Upon opening the game, you're presented with a small menu, allowing you to pick an ending from both airship and complex to determine what happens in this chain of events, and there's a lot of different routes to compensate for many different possibilities. And because of that, I'm not going to go into all of them in depth for multiple reasons. First of all, completing the mission has 16 different endings, and I cannot think of a way to not make that a bore to listen to. Plus, if you're really invested in finding out what happens in all of Henry's misadventures, you can buy the game yourself. Completing the mission is the same length as all the previous games combined, maybe even more. It's fully worth your time and money. That being said, I'll give some context for the achievements, and there are a few specific endings I want to talk about before this video is over. So for the last time, let's go over these achievements. Luckily for my soul, the majority of achievements in completing the mission are related to finding the different endings, with most of the other achievements being pretty easy to find, and the bigger ones being more prominent side quests that span the entire game. For example, Assemble the Crew, where you have to collect the hidden Among Us crewmates, or as I like to call them, Amongai, scattered across the game. Now this might seem like a questionable reference, but you need to keep in mind some context. If you didn't know already, Puffballs United and the rest of the developers at Innersloth didn't just make the Henry Stickmin collection, but are also the developers of fucking Among Us. Yes, that Among Us. Look, you can make all the sus memes you want, but you've got to realize that completing the mission came out mere weeks before Among Us blew up in 2020. Hell, completing the mission's momentum definitely contributed to Among Us's growth. It's a weird thing to think about. The other major side quest you're going to find yourself doing is collecting the bios. This was mainly just a side note for the other games because they aren't that long, nor do they have that many characters, but completing the mission has about 6 times the average. There are 12 pages of characters, some in the distant background who you will miss, and have to replay the same scene over and over and over again in order to find them. It's not miserable, but it's certainly close. By far the worst goose chase you'll be sent on because it can be really hard to tell from the little bio icons what route an NPC is from. Anyway, good riddance. The other notable achievements are mainly just little goofs like monkeying around in Triple Threat.
Hey, that looks like fun, but kind of on the clock here.
Or in the case of the free man route, you can keep selecting to lockpick a door with no lock until the game gets annoyed enough to give you one. You brought this upon yourself. Also, Shoop the Woob's back. Looks like he's finally got his mojo back, good for him. And that is every achievement in completing the mission. Well, there's one more thing, but first of all, I want to talk about my favourite completing the mission endings, or at least the ones I think about the most. Okay, let's rip the band-aid off. Let's talk about Valiant Hero. This route comes from the combined events of the government-supported private investigator route from Airship and Presumed Dead from Complex. After launching an orbital station, the Top Hat clan have become practically invincible, leaving Charles and the government in a bad spot. It's around then that Charles runs into Henry, and together, they form a plan to take down the Top Hats for good. Using a government prototype, Charles and Henry head out into space with the goal of destroying the station, Charles handling things the only way he knows how.
You know what? No. This calls for some bold action. I'm the bold action man!
Warning. Critical damage to core. Please evacuate immediately.
I've always wanted to do that.
Warning.
Leading to the two scrambling to find a way out, and getting into quite a lot of trouble along the way.
1, 2, 3.
Until finally, they find the escape pods.
Can't wait to go home. Don't worry about me. I'll find another way.
Henry? You there? Man, that roughed me up. Got him though. There's gotta be another escape pod around here somewhere. We did it though, we got him. It was a pretty good plan. Could say it was the greatest.
General, the Top Hat station's been destroyed.
Excellent news.
What's wrong?
It truly was the greatest plan. I'm not crying. You're crying. Okay, but how did we get from funny distraction dance to this? This is fucked up. You can't do this to me. Puffball said he wanted to try a different tone than he usually does, and considering the popularity of our best boy, you can see why this one hit different. This route is practically notorious for the sharp change in tone, and you know what? It earned it. I think Puffball is great at building scenes that hold a weird amount of emotional weight, especially for the amount of time we spend with its cast. And it's always more interesting to see the more cinematic scenes in the later games. But how about we end on another iconic route? One that has a lot of our favourite characters all at once. Let's talk about the Triple Threat route. This route is a combination of government-supported private investigator and convict allies, where, after being rescued by the government from the complex, Henry and Ellie take on a mission from the commander to pay them back for their rescue. Henry and Ellie, with the help of returning Charles, have to work together to prevent the launch of the Top Hat's orbital station. And this is probably the funniest route in the game.
The three of us will have no problems completing the mission.
The Henry, Ellie, Charles dynamic is complete peak. This is a triangle of three complete dumbasses tossing a brain cell between each other and still finding ways to completely drop the ball. It retains the fun of Henry and Ellie teaming up to progress, while also adding Charles's more guy-in-the-chair and gadgety antics for what feels like a celebration of how far this series has come, both in scope and in comedic writing. And I don't think anything exemplifies it better than the scene in the rocket where we have to choose a plan to progress.
Okay guys, I have the most awesome plan.
I'm gonna crash headfirst into the cafeteria window.
What do you mean? Like, you're gonna jump out and smash it with your head?
No, with my helicopter. What do you guys think? I'm ready to...
Hold on, I don't really understand.
What's not to understand? It's simple. I fly the helicopter into the window.
But how does that help?
I don't really think you get it. Henry, you get it, right?
I guess I'm outvoted then.
I think it's a little bit out of range now.
It's just a fun time through and through and embodies everything I love about Henry Stickmin. In the end, the three take down the Top Hats one last time, by sending them somewhere where, well, they can't cause anyone any trouble anymore.
Where'd you end up sending the rocket anyway? After
a successful mission, Ellie suggests Charles takes them on any more missions they have, and and with a bright future ahead of them, they become a true triple threat. I know some of you might be disappointed I didn't cover everything in completing the mission. Hell, I missed out a route taking place after the Revenged, where Henry's turned into a cyborg and goes on a power trip to avenge himself. He also has a stand, apparently. But unfortunately, I can't sit here and gush about this game all day. I mean, I could, but I refuse to edit that. Although, we have time to cover one last thing. One last achievement. The final achievement of the Henry Stickmin collection. In the Top Hat for Life route, the center of chaos containment makes a return, but what's important here is this multiverse imbalance bar. When you've experienced every single fail and route in the game, this will completely fill up and allow us access to multiverse correction. In order to deal with an excess of realities, a cake is sent back in time to West Mesa Penitentiary.
Oh, a package, huh?
Oi, Dave!
Yep. Hey, I got a package here for someone named Henry.
I love delivering packages.
And thus, our story ends and begins. Henry Stickmin showed us a world, one with so many unique possibilities and stories to tell. Puffballs United, almost entirely on his own, made a collage that shows the different media he loved growing up. But the further down we got, the games themselves became referenced in other media. They themselves became iconic, quotable moments. Ones that will stick with Henry Stickmin's fans, just like Pokemon or Mario or Metal Gear or Sonic or TF2 did for Puffballs. Hell, the series references itself. It's a whole tribute to Crossing the Pit, that small novice project that spawned the whole series. More than anyone, Puffball loves Henry Stickmin. We also see this love in the fan content, like the Reanimated collab that brought the community together to reimagine the triple threat route in all of their different styles. Or the different fan games, which could honestly be their own video, but I'll digress. Or me, making a whole video about these games and showing every nook and cranny to show everything I love about it. The attention to detail, the amount of work done by one artist to bring this world to life, and this reverence for all the media he's grown up with, come together to make a series of hilarious, unforgettable Flash games that will always be really important to me. But what's going on with Henry Stickmin now? Well, after the Henry Stickmin collection released and blew up, Innersloth's other, fairly unknown title, Among Us, blew up, and that's been where the majority of their attention has gone. Puffball has expressed no interest in making any more Henry, which is fair considering making the connection nearly killed him. The collection wraps up basically everything you could be curious about in the world of Henry Stickmin, and in our 100% journey, we've seen everything it had to offer. So whatever happens next, whatever we choose to love next, it's up to us to make that choice. Come on, we've done it before. It's time to pick our next option. And if we fail, well, we can do it all over again. And until then, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching the video. I've been gone for a while, generally just a lot of school stuff. But hey, I'm back, even if I'm a little bit rusty. If you liked the video and want to see more, head down below and give that subscribe button a good old smack. Or if you want to support me further, consider donating to my Ko-Fi. I'm planning on doing polls for new videos, sneaky previews, and other exclusive content on there, but don't feel pressured if you can't afford it. Just leaving a comment does a lot to help the channel's growth. Either way, I'll see you later. Bye!